I'm Lou, and this is the AI Cockroach Show.
Am I the only one that didn't know cockroaches could be epic? Buckle up because this AI cockroach is about to take you on a wild ride through time. Imagine stepping out of a prehistoric mud puddle and walking through the ages. The AI cockroach has done just that, from lush jungles to ancient caves, from straw huts to log cabins, and from bustling city streets to the futuristic space age. This little survivor has seen it all. With a blend of humor and resilience, the AI cockroach teaches us that adaptability is key. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving no matter what life throws at you. So whether you're facing the challenges of today or the unknowns of tomorrow, channel your inner AI cockroach. Embrace change, stay strong, and keep moving forward. Survive the future, one tiny step at a time.
Today's show is going to be awesome because we are in our third phase, third show. First show, the AI Cockroach Show, was about the intangible stuff about AI and the creative process in media and entertainment production. Show number 2, if you haven't seen it, go back and listen to it, watch it. It was about some of the apps that opened you just saw with the cockroach and all that crazy stuff happening. We talked about that. And show 3, we're going to talk about hardware and AI's application in hardware in media and entertainment production, which is way over my head, which is why I got Joe. Joe, take it away. Take it away.
Thank you, Lou. All right. So I did bring with me a special guest that has a hands-on version of a lot of what we're going to talk about. But just to set the table, as they say, everybody has seen robo cameras because robo is a natural evolution of AI. It's an easy infiltration for AI to find its way in. So robo, if you've ever been to a concert and you see this little camera, you see a tower running back and forth in front of the stage and going up and down. That's a tower cam. That has an operator somewhere in that building. If you've been to the Final Four basketball and along courtside, there's a camera running back and forth with the players. That's a robo. Football, that camera that's on those cables, that's overhead, that's flying around, that's going down, or if you're watching the game or if you're playing video games, that perspective of down and follow, that's a robo. Even in a house of worship, when you go, they all started coming on with robos. That little white ball that's somewhere on a stand in your house of worship, somebody's operating it. That's a robo. So without going into any more detail, now that you know what we're talking about, I'm going to introduce you to one of the premier operators, and just happens to be my son. Welcome, Frank Scacciaferro.
Well, hello.
Hey.
What an introduction to robo cameras. Remote operated. Yeah.
Yes. So, Frank, why don't you, because you've got your hands on all of those, why don't you kind of give us the backstory of how they operate, what's actually going on, and then we can evolve into the future of how that technology AA might be adapted into that.
All right, before you even start, I got a civilian question, which is going to be my role. You guys say robo all the time. Robo is for robotics?
Correct.
Got it. Go.
Yeah, robotics are, there's people call them a lot of different things, remote operated, just because that means there's not somebody physically touching the camera wherever it may be mounted or built or whatever. So yeah, like a lot of the ones you mentioned, like the Skycam in football, the tower cams that are on rail cams or just a rail cam itself, all of those are remotely operated systems. They're all some type of specialty robotic system. The same thing with the Jitacam. All these different things are robos. Then there's like a just specific when you talk about robos, especially in sports. That's more of just a smaller P1, P50, some type of smaller camera that's mounted on a robotic head, which could be like a Stanton head, a Peapod head. These are all different type of remote heads that I or any operator would control from a, remote area, whether it be on site, just in a different spot, or sometimes you can be operating it at home, let's say, or from a truck or from a different control room, anything like that. So those are robos in the quick answer.
Okay, so look again. I'm gonna try to be the in betweener here. So when you started rattling off the camera models, there's actual cameras that are commercially available that an industry uses for a lot of things. That then gets mounted onto a another piece of equipment that is actually like a robotic, like a car, a remote operated car that can move around either on a track or do something. And you have the ability to go up and down. The camera can move up and down.
Yeah.
And then the camera itself, you still have to be able to operate the camera remotely. You still have to be able to zoom. You still have to be able to focus. You still have to be able to do all those on any one of these devices.
Right. So like, especially let's take, because you mentioned it a few times, let's take like the tower cam part of it that's on a car that's moving back and forth and going up and down, and then the remote head is moving, and then you put a camera on that remote head. So there's really, in that particular setup, there's 4 different things happening, right? There's someone, you can control all of those by yourself with different controllers in different ways that they're actually all get connected. But you can also do each of those steps individually. So like one person could be controlling the left and right driving the car, right? The car. And then you mount a tower cam on the car. Then you would have foot pedals or some type of controller that allows you to go up and down. So that would be the second aspect of it. And I'm taking it from the ground up because it's just easier to understand the difference of all 4 phases of this. So then you go to the remote head, the actual thing that is mounted on the tower cam, that then the camera gets mounted on that. So the remote head could be, there's hundreds of different type of smart heads, fluid heads, different types of levels of stabilized heads, and all these different things. And then you can put whatever camera you're using, whether if it's a broadcast type of thing or like the tower cam thing I recently did for the fashion show. It was a Sony Venice, so it was a very high-end cinema look for the show. So it was that mounted on there. So there's like 4 different things kind of going on simultaneously, and all the connectivity that comes in between one thing to the next.
All right, I want to break down 2 things, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with this stuff, but you've worked on mega shows. You've worked on huge concerts. You've worked on the top of the flight sporting events. Who decides? And let me just rattle off some of these names here so we know what we're talking about. We're talking about Thursday Night Football. We're talking about Olympics. We're talking about Blink setup concert. We're talking about give me some more. US Open that you just finished.
The hat, yeah. That's kind of why I wore the hat, because I thought we would be talking a lot about that system.
Yeah. So the Olympics, you did tennis. You 2 different Olympics, Japan, Paris. One did tennis, one did golf. You've done Final Four, another one of those runaround cameras. Give me some idea of who picks the technology for an event, and then you have to pick the operators, both the driver and camera op. I'm going to just split those in common language. Who's doing all of that?
Who's choosing what those things are?
Exactly.
Well, first, let me clarify. I know it doesn't really matter for the conversation that we're having, but it does for my own thing. I've never done the Final Four. I've done the Big East tournament with the Railcam. Two different things. I just don't like saying things that I haven't been a part of, even though it could be the same system. Yeah. As far as who's deciding that, I mean, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like those are the companies I work for are vendors of the network. So it's like there's got to be a whole bunch of conversation going from the director to someone who's handling the budget to the tech manager, having those conversations of we want this. Maybe it starts with the director, like I want this type of look, or they know somebody that has this toy that's like, oh yeah, I want to try this out. Do we have the budget for it? Then technically, can we do it? Can we fit it in the arena that we're doing it at? Then it's a matter of, okay, say they get the go ahead for the rail cam for the Big East or whatever it is. Then they would go to that particular railcam system that I've worked with was through Fletcher. So then Fletcher would be like, spec out their whole thing. They decide, hey, this is the package that you're going to get. Here's the camera that can go on at the camera head, blah, blah, blah. And then they would crew me or whoever for that particular thing. So there's a lot to get to me. I'm the last thing. It's just, are you available to do this? And it would be me.
You also have to know how to do it.
Well, yes, correct. But I'm just saying, as far as that whole line of people, there's a whole bunch of back and forth conversation, negotiations, all of that before it gets down to the people that are operating it. But that also could be, depending on what it is, could be a suggestion or a request by a certain director, or a tech manager that happens to know me or knows somebody else that's like, hey, can we have these guys again? Which does happen.
That's something that I personally never thought about. Like, how does it come from the concept to who's paying the bills to Frank? And there's a ton of people involved in there. We're going to take a break right now on the Furrow City TV network, the AI Cockroach Show, and we will be right back in just about a minute.
Listen, here's your shot, which is what you need. It's available if you're interested. You can start right now, or you can wait years looking to get in, get skills, or miraculously get ahead. Sure, you can do the waiting thing too, but you absolutely can start and join us today.
So we're back, and Frank was explaining how he ends up in the picture of choosing all the gear and the what's necessary for the venue and the sport and all that other stuff. So with that, let's just continue the conversation. Joe?
Okay, so I want to keep moving this forward pretty quickly. So next, talk about, we know you're remote. What are the handles? What are you touching? What are you doing? What does the thing look like? We know how a camera operator looks when he's using it. What does a remote operator look like? That station.
Yeah, I know it's a tough question because there's a million different ones. Some of them are a small box controller with a joystick, possibly two joysticks on it, and then other zoom controls and buttons a lot of the time, depending on what I'm doing. If it's multiple actions, like, again, we'll go back to because it's one of the more complicated ones, I guess, with the tower cam mounted on an Agito, which is the car, and the tower cam mounted on that with then the remote head on top of that, and then the camera. So that would be a full controller. And I'm putting my hands down, not that anybody can see them, but with a joystick, a zoom control, focus, and the joystick has pan tilt of the remote head. And then that is integrated to the controls of the actual camera. So that would be me just with my hands, just doing the operation of the remote head and the camera. Then to actually make the tower go up and down, and then the car left and right, and those controls that go along with that, those are actually would be the way I would do it, because you can program it differently. The way I like to do that would be with 4 foot pedals. So one pedal makes it go down, one pedal makes it go up, one other pedal makes it go left, one other pedal makes it go right. And I'm explaining this very simply. Obviously, it's not as nobody could just jump on. It's honestly more like playing a piano, I would assume. I don't play piano, but just knowing that you're doing stuff with your hands, and you're doing stuff with your feet, and you're focusing on whatever your subject is, and having to focus on whatever you're covering. So it's quite involved.
Are you more often in the room with all this equipment live? Like if it's an arena game, are you ringside of the arena, or are you more often in a truck in a remote location or somewhere else in the stadium?
Nah, for that kind of stuff, I'm in the arena. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily. For the most part, I would have line of sight to whatever I'm operating.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, whether it's like accessible for me to get to there. That's usually why you would have another tech with you that sits by it. So if anything goes wrong or whatever, they can, troubleshoot.
Okay,
And,
let's move to I was going to use because as you were describing it, what was flashing in my head was a military drone that you're sitting in that control room and you're flying this piece of equipment and you have all this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously not nearly as complicated, but similar to simulation of what the other thing would be. So let's move to something you just completed, which was the U.S. Open. And in doing so, you've done it enough times now that you have a traditional setup that's on one court. Set that up. Tell us about what that typically was and how that got, how you were integrated into that operation. And then we'll talk about how this year, I believe, the transition, both at the Olympics and the U.S. Open, kind of brought AI into the picture of mechanical operations.
Yeah. So it's called the Trace system, which is a system of camera tracking and ball following of sorts, for tennis specifically, and that's all done through Fletcher, which is the robo company out of Chicago. So yeah, basically, we now cover 14 of the outer courts at the U.S. Open. If anyone has ever watched the U.S. Open, there's the 3 main stadiums, and then they have a bunch of the outer courts, which have all like qualifiers and the somewhat lesser matches, which were never televised before until this. So as that grew, I think they started in like 2017, I believe, is when Trace first came out and they started using it. Now I've been doing it since 2020 was my first year. So this was my fifth season, let's say, doing it on that show. So yes, very comfortable with it. It's a full show covering one match or however many matches on your court throughout the day, throughout the entire tournament. And there's 4 cameras that are built on each court. A camera 1 that's pretty much static all the way up top looking at the entire court. Then a camera 2, which is a ball follow / type of position that's built right under camera 1 on a fence. Then 3 and 4, which is the actual Trace system. And those 2 cameras are on either side of the net, and they're tracking automatically the player that's playing on both sides, or players if it's a doubles match. So that's where like the beauty of the whole Trace system is, where those 2 things are tracking, but I have control if I want of any of those cameras at any given time. You press a button and it would override the tracking part of it, and I can take camera 3, right, which is the one to the left of the net. Camera 4 is on the other side. And as soon as I release control or relinquish control of that camera, it'll snap back to that same framing that it's supposed to be having. And as that player is moving around the court, that it's keeping that same frame, no matter if they're getting closer, further away, whatever. So that's the most very simple form of what Trace actually is. It's those having two other cameras working for you while I'm doing a different camera. Then particularly this year, when you asked about like the AI integration, it's still very much, in the beginning phases of that, but as it learns from itself more and more, it helps with that tracking of not losing those players and thinking that player, or thinking that a ball boy on the court is that player that it's supposed to be following. Like maybe it used to switch frames a lot more and follow a different target, because that's what they are. You're targeting what the camera is supposed to be following. So now with this, and it was getting better every day, because it's machine learning, right? That's all AI is. So it's learning from its own data or whatever data you're feeding it. As far as getting like deep into how the hell that works, I have no idea. I know that like Mike Musselman from Fletcher, who's in charge of the whole Trace world of Fletcher, he works like every day with the main coder that created Trace in the first place, this guy Wayne, who I've never met. But they're the ones that integrated this whole AI system into Trace so it could make it that much better and keep learning from itself. So they would be recording matches every day, actual video footage of these things, so then it can learn what we're doing, what it's supposed to be following. And then the biggest thing was it's not following just like what you take a picture of on these. It's hard to think because I know I keep saying other stuff, but like you have nobody has any reference of like what any of this actually is. But it's not following a target, right? It's just looking for someone now. Is this a tennis player or is this not a tennis player? Now, what all the data that goes into making that happen, no clue. We all don't. Honestly, like nobody really knows because we don't know what data it's looking at, what it's not looking at. And I'm talking about like the machine learning part, like it's learning from it by itself.
So, Lou, I want to snap back to what we had talked about in previous episodes. And Frank, one of the things that I've learned over the years and have been tracking AI, and it's this big mystery thing, but it really comes down to database. And if there's no database, AI is inept. Mm-hmm. But the bigger it can build the more data you can feed it, the more points of reference, the smarter it gets because it's learning that. But it's a very humanistic way to learn. If I only gave a child one book, its life, that's all it's going to know. But if you're constantly feeding it more information, it being the human, you're giving it more information, you're educating it more books, more data. There's a learning curve that will happen. Yeah. AI follows that similar. And what I heard, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But in real quick, just because this relates exactly to what you're saying. So throughout the tournament, I mean, we were there for 3 weeks covering tennis, and we were only but utilizing the AI portion of this, that version of it. Like most of the other courts, most of the people were working on like, let's call it Trace Classic. That's what we were calling like the regular system from last year. But now we have this Trace AI. We only used it on 4 courts, I think, just because we didn't know. We didn't know how well it was going to do. And then every day, Mike was on the phone at night and like I said, giving data for this to learn from us, like certain specific operators and specific courts. And it was learning every day. And then that guy, Wayne, would have an update the next day with it. Like, here's version, blah, blah, blah. So I think over a course of 3 weeks of just on those AI courts that we used, we had 4 different versions, like updated versions, live updated every other day. So exactly what you're saying is like, we were testing it basically and giving it more data. And then the next day we would have a little bit better version. And, it's not drastic changes that we're seeing, but as someone who has been doing this for a few years now and like understand it a lot more because I was just asking Mike a lot of questions of like what it's learning and doing all that, I could tell. And we were all giving him feedback as well of like, now it does this. And this is better, but I think it affected this part of it. And I can't give you like specifics without really getting deep into how the whole system actually works.
That this is really just a testament to what this whole show is and why we called it the AI Cockroach Show, because it just keeps surviving and changing and adapting. And we're going to get into it a little bit more right after this quick break. So we're back and we've already learned a whole bunch of new stuff because of AI and how AI learns and moves and takes data and pushes it forward. So let's get back into it. Joe, Frank, why don't you guys pick up where you left off?
I want to just roll back again, and I keep referring to the first episodes. The second episode in there is where I quantified my thinking of AI, which I've assessed a long time ago. It's an assistant. I've had assistants my entire career, 30 years of having assistants, interns, people who came in not knowing and then learned as they went. Remember the old word, learned on the job? AI is that assistant. It learns on the job, except it learns at an accelerated rate. And the more it learns, the better it gets and the more efficient. But you heard Frank say something that was key. They went back and tweaked it because it might have been learning, but it could start yawing the wrong way.
Mhm.
No. Don't learn that. Come back here and learn this. And that, Frank, is that spot on what you guys were doing?
It is. And actually, like throughout this conversation, and I was thinking about that a little more, like because of, right, I said there was 4 or 5 courts that we had it on. I'm curious to know how you could even, like how you read any of this data, like what it's learning. Is it learning how I and my director are doing a show? You know what I mean? Like what is it actually looking at? That's the part that's like the craziest thing.
It's watching. It's
Well, it depends
It's-
on the recording because it's not looking at like a whole output of the program. You know what I mean? Like it's as far as what they were gathering data for was not like,
right. I'm saying that. What I'm thinking, and I'm going to have Mike on one of the shows soon, is again from an engineering guess point, which I'm usually pretty good at, is because I'm taking words that you said. You said target. You said framing. You said that. So those are soft parameters. Those are code parameters. This is what you need to do. And if you're hitting it with an image, it can interpolate that image and say, did this camera hold this? When did this go wrong? When did that? So all of that is the collected data. And I'm sure I'm way top down design, but from a pedestrian understanding, it's got to be getting close. So if it took all of those cameras, let's go to sports. Sorry, Lo. After a game, what do coaches and players do?
Yeah.
They break down the game. They look at the game. They saw what tendencies where they went wrong, where they went right. Here's what we tried to execute. Here's what ended up happening. Let's correct that. Or here's what worked right. Let's focus more on that. AI is that. It's in that room with you, learning what's going on. Not like a big brother scary, it's going to take over the world.
No.
It gives you an opportunity, you, Frank, it gives you an opportunity to not have to focus on the minutia detail. You can start, and not in that environment, but in a different environment, you can get more artsy. You can start thinking rather than just intuitively doing.
Yeah.
And that's where humans will always have the leg up, because that instinctive, out of the box, creative thought. And what a great segue I just put myself in. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, from your POV, or even Lou listening, what do you think will be a future use of AI going into the hardware side of it? We talked about the soft skills, the script, the blah, 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 blah. Where does this now start? Tesla's cars. Push auto drive. It doesn't know. It learned that. They couldn't program everything. They gave it parameters. So where do you see this in media and in our world? What do you see your cameras being able to do? What would be something you'd say, shit, if you could take care of that, I could do all of this?
I think I think it would be very, very valuable for, I don't think it's there yet at a big broadcast type of thing. You're not going to rely on anything like that. Any big national show, you're not going to rely on that. But I'm thinking for any podcaster, content people on social media, or any just like, you know, a little lower hanging fruit type of productions where you don't have a budget, but if there's a consumer AI software that's integrated into 3 PTZ cameras, and someone wants to go in and cut a show, but not just cut a show on just 3 static cameras and it's a boring, not moving show. You know, if you can just, like, it'll follow someone moving around, maybe they're walking around and it's the same tracking type of way. One camera, okay, keep this framing. Then another camera, keep this framing on this subject. Then another camera, keep this framing. But if you hear reactions from the audience, I want you to flip around and do this and go find me some area that's making noise or some area that's moving or something like that. So then I can just sit back and select cameras and direct the show with nobody else there. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, like, but
Yeah.
not at a broadcast, like I'm saying, like not at a huge broadcast level yet. Now,
And I was just, yes, let me interrupt that, because that's something I've said for my whole life. Don't ever say it's not going to reach this level. It will.
no, it absolutely,
Everything you just described, that will happen.
yeah.
I mean, we know it just from network. Go to a network news show. We talked about this the other day on the show we were working on.
Mhm.
Lou, if you watch network television, like a multiple desk, Fox 5, that's because they usually pull back and do this wide shot, and there's 4 cameras and there's nobody on any of them, but they're moving and they're cutting.
Yeah, and
So-
it's also like you can build, like, because of the timing of television, right? Or like something that's very scripted. I mean, then you give the parameters of down to if it's, you know, some type of specific move that you want to happen at this point in the show or at this certain timestamp, and you do all that. I mean, you write a script and have all of that integrated into the cameras or graphics that are supposed to be coming up. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that already similar to this, but then the whole show's kind of happening. And then you go back and look and have that learn from something. And this is what I was asking about. I wonder if it's learning from my machine. Like if it was seeing a program output, right, of our match, that me and the director, it's just me and a director because he does everything and then I do all the cameras. But if it saw a program output of what that show was from start to finish, and you keep repeating that same thing, would that then learn like our style of how we were doing that show?
Mm-hmm.
And then be recreating that style? Because that would be really fucking cool. Sorry for cursing. But like then you can start like really being like, okay, I want to learn if I'm going to go on and learn how to do something, how to cut a show. I want to learn that director's style. I want to learn how that person shoots. I want to learn this specific thing from that guy. Because that's like a whole that's even like more insane. And this goes back to Lou, your whole thing of like your favorite teacher. Like I want to be taught this way, but I want to learn that guy's style of shooting because it's really cool. So then you can just pick and just like learn from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I'm shaking my head so vigorously and not letting Lou jump in was because it does that with music. It does that with art. It does that. It's looking at a style.
Mm-hmm.
And because because of the internet, it has this ginormous database of information. So when you go back to, I don't know if it's the first or second episode, but if you go back to those 2 episodes, and Lou was talking about an example of that when they were doing a World War II, and they were doing it written in the narrative of Winston Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was written in his style because they were able to get that data. So what you just said, Frank, is spot on, because if it watches pick a director, if it watches a Spielberg, has a style. I mean, you and I both, all of us, actually, we can watch a show and go, oh, this is being cut by this. This is being cut by that. Or, it's a stylized feature.
Yeah.
That'll learn that, and it'll give you back that imagery. And once it understands how to capture that by the DP, by the camera operator, then it starts being able to do everything.
Yeah.
as it can with music.
And the only not little, there's obviously a lot that's also on the other side of the coin of things that are dangerous like that. In that article that we were reading before that I sent to you guys was that whole thing with Lensa, that app that was generative AI is that's the big buzzword, right? Rather than discriminative, I think was the other one.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
capturing data, but it's like that AI was just okay, here, give me, I would generate an image that looks like this, and this is the place, and this is what I want the person to look like, and blah, blah, blah. It's just gathering all that shit because it doesn't know. It doesn't know what it's looking at. It just gathers a bunch of stuff from the internet,
Right.
other people's art that did not give permission for anything, and then used all that to create something that was maybe 4 different people's styles. And then they got like sued for it.
Right.
Because it was like we didn't give permission for any of this. So like, man, that's always the dangerous part of it is because, and that's why the thing we use through Searchy is great because we know where the information's coming from. ChatGPT
Right.
is like, yeah, it could give you an answer, but like you don't it's not fact checked. You don't know if it's real.
Right.
All right. So see if this is a product. You got this whole Fletcher. What's it called? The trace system.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you turn that into a coach? So I'm Lou Agassi, and I'm going to have a tennis match against Bjorn Scacciaferro. So the trace system's got all this film of Bjorn Scacciaferro's doing his moves. It's watching him, following him, match after match, year after year. Lou says, okay, what does he do, or what are the percentages of backhand returns he does when this shot is hit to him? And where does he miss it? When I stand where in the court? Here, to the right, to the back line? I can't imagine that. The AI says, coach me how to defend this shot based on all the information you have on the matches and movements of Bjorn Scacciaferro.
I 100% think yes, and that expands beyond everything.
Yeah.
Because now it's you're if you have enough data, if you have enough film in this case, football would use this. I mean, I've spent good 20 something 6 years around embedded inside the NFL, and I have a pretty good handle on how they break film down. They would love to be able to do that, and I'm sure somebody's going to quickly put that out. And that was a great analogy, Lou. Yeah, that is definitely a future use of that.
Yeah.
And that's the thinking that we have to do. We have to start thinking about what is the minutia, what is the big work, where does this change that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like Frank's analogy when he was talking about, AI basically directing a show and saying, okay, when so-and-so is saying this, let's cut I heard crowd. Let me cut to the crowd. When the band finishes this, oh, it's a guitar solo. Let me cut to a tight shot of that. I mean, you could essentially direct a show with enough information. But it would have to, the database has to get bigger and bigger.
And it's crazy because, like, everybody's going to hear that, right? Me saying that or any of us saying any of that stuff. And they'd be like, well, then like, you don't need any camera operators. You don't need anybody to do this. But, and that's what I'm not talking about. I'm talking about, like, somebody in a smaller thing that can't afford to hire all those people and can't do all that can now you can do those shows. I mean, that was the same thing when Trace came out. It was like, oh, well, like people hear about this and they're like, oh, so you just do a whole show and like you operate all 4 cameras and blah, blah, blah. I was like, yes, but like that actually created all of this work. Those courts were never televised ever until 7 years ago. I was like, so it's a good thing. And I was like, and you're only thinking about us, the operators, and the director, let alone the audio people that go set everything up, the video guys that are actually part of this. There's still a whole complement of crewing people like that the trace or the aces is what ESPN has us as, or the USTA, whatever, that created hundreds of people to be able to work.
Yeah.
For a month because of
Yeah.
it. So it's yeah.
And thank you for saying that, because part of the central messaging of the AI Cockroach Show is that adaptability, cross training, flexibility, understanding your current skill, and projecting out into the future what AI can do to enhance that in terms of the soft skills or the hard technical skills like you have, as well as the soft skills and artistry of robo camera work. Joe, anything closing?
Yeah, I just want to tag that with, again, I've seen enough technology flow into industries, and I've seen those adjustments. And I'll go back to my motherland, which is music. And music, we talked about this. Music, there used to be 100 multi-million-dollar studios in New York City, because if you wanted to record, you had to go there. And if you were, as Frank said, low-hanging fruit, you couldn't afford to go there. Nobody was paying your way. So as technology came about, people can now cut an album on a subway on their laptop, and it's just as good. Mm-hmm. If you can't, DJs were around scratching and trying to make loops. Well, now there's loops at the plenty, and you don't have to count beats, but that didn't. It put that group had to evolve to the next technology to evolve. If you don't cockroach your way through, you will become Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you're going to just be somebody's going to find your bones laying in the dirt someday. Stay on the cockroach path, and you'll be fine.
Cut.
Can the theme song of this show be the what is it, the La Cucaracha?
No, but Lou does have a sign off.
Yeah,
right, Lou, we're done.
As a matter of fact, we are right at the cutoff point. Thank you all for joining us here on the Faro TV network at the AI Cockroach Show. Frank, thanks for joining us. Joe, as always, I look forward to our next little endeavor and to see how much stuff changed between now and next week. Goodbye.
Hey, Lou.
Like a moose.
Yeah, that was awesome.